Yeah, eat, sleep, fantasy, you rockin' with the best. NFL Fantasy Football Podcast. We talking mock drafts, running backs, better follow the conversation with John, Dale, Christian, and Armando. Screaming Eat Nation, we doing what we like. Tune in every week, guarantee we get it hype. Fantasy, football enthusiasts, I know you plan to be joining us on Eat, Sleep, Fantasy. Yeah, Eat, Sleep, Fantasy. Eat, Sleep, Fantasy.
All right, welcome for another episode of Eat Sleep Fantasy. I'm your host, Armando Crespo. With me is John Chapman.
Not much, man. I love the self-generated effects there. But, man, what a crazy week. I feel like you either had the best players or you had the worst players. I'm in a few different leagues where I had, teams that went over 200, and then I had a couple leagues where people went over 200 against me. So it was a freaking crazy week. But, hey, man, if you had the studs, you got your win. There's no doubt about that. But, yeah, we got some stuff to talk about for sure.
Are you trading Christian McCaffrey for anything? Is there anything I can give someone for Christian McCaffrey? Like, is he untradeable? Like, literally the like that?
I don't think that he is untradeable. He's amazing, and he's the number one fantasy asset to own across in every single scoring format, which is crazy. But here's the thing with him. You could trade him just fine. I would trade him. The very first thing I would look for is Dalvin Cook plus. Like, I want Dalvin Cook and a stud wide receiver, or Dalvin Cook upgrading quarterback, Dalvin Cook upgrading tight end, because I think Dalvin Cook is the closest person that is. I think those two are kind of in this elite tier by themselves. Or you could do like a Saquon Barkley plus, something along those lines. But you better be getting back one of those top tier, just absolute stud running backs plus. So, yeah, I don't mind. I believe in buying low, sell high, and I think that you can get that done with McCaffrey right now. But, yeah, he is just – it doesn't even make sense how good he is.
Yeah, no, it's – yeah, this is like this is how people, like, when LT was going off a couple of years, like 10, 20 years ago, this is how
he's averaging 31.9 points a game, and he's been consistent with it. It's not like he's just had one great game. If you look at what he's put together so far, he had the 7.3 game against Tampa Bay in week 2, but then 42, 27, 33, 47. I mean, golly.
Yeah, it is.
And the crazy thing is, he's doing this without Cam Newton.
Yeah, exactly. I think when Cam Newton comes back, it might hurt his value a little bit, but he's still going to be the number one RB, number one player by far. He's going to win everyone a championship. If you own him, you are on pace to win your league.
Yep.
So it's a really, really, really light week of waiver wire. So we're just going to like skim through them just over top. You know what I'm saying? Like just like a little frosting layer, not too much. I really apologize for our shitty waiver wire, but it's not our fault.
There's not much out there. There really is not much out there. There's a couple injuries that took place, but even the injuries that happened were backup injuries to where now you're down to the third string. And here's the thing about fantasy football. Obviously, opportunity is very, very important, but at some level, talent has to factor into the equation. So with Wayne Gallman, for example, right? He was the number one waiver wire 2 weeks ago, and he came out and crushed it his first week back. Now he's got a concussion. Probably not going to play because it's going to be a short week. They play on Thursday. But here's the deal. The talent drop-off from Saquon Barkley, who's probably the best running back in the game outside of Saquon Barkley. He's in that top tier for sure. The drop from Saquon Barkley to Wayne Gallman is big. But the drop from Wayne Gallman to Elijah Penny or Hillman is just as significant. So at some point, yes, opportunity is key. But once you get down to this type of talent that just has not risen to the top, it's going to cause major problems. So it's not like they can just step in and just, he's starting running back. That's not how it works.
Yeah, I agree. So Hilliman's going to be on a waiver wire column, but I don't know if he's necessarily worth it. If you're desperate for an R&B, grab him. But otherwise, just hold tight. Saquon Barkley is going to be back. A guy that I do think is worth a waiver wire ad is Minshew. He's available. It's still in 77% of leagues.
That doesn't make sense.
He might be matchup proof. That goes with Chark as well. Both of them are just incredible.
Yeah, you've got to be able to get him in your lineups wherever he is, because here's the deal. He's played in 5 games. He went in the second half of that first one, but he's not losing. He's got a 9-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, and that interception came whenever he was trying to force a comeback at the end of the game. He is a guy that you just have to play, and he's done it on the road. He's done it against tough defenses. He's done it against everybody, and he's just getting started. So, yeah, Minshew he's a top 10 quarterback play rest of season, which is crazy.
You think he's going to retain the job?
No, I think the money, unfortunately, is going to waver, but I do think eventually it will go back to Nick Foles. Now, one thing I am curious about is, it does give them time, but as long as he is playing, he's a top 10 quarterback play.
Yeah, I do not disagree with you. He is matchup proof, and that goes with Chark as well. I mean, he's performing against some really good defenses. So if you own Chark, I think he's a must play. He's outperforming DeAndre Hopkins right now. Some big ass names like Chark is a top 5 wide receiver. I know that's maybe not talent wise, but fantasy football wise, point wise, he's a top 5 guy, which is crazy to say.
The targets are the thing that's interesting to me. They just keep going up. If we start week 1, 4, week 2, 9, 5, 8, 11 targets this week for 164 yards, 2 touchdowns. You've got to play him. And DJ Chark was going against one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL this past week against Carolina. So
I benched him. I was like, I can't trust him. I'm gonna put DJ Moore in. And DJ Moore was fine, but he wasn't Chark. He wasn't Chark at all. It was a mistake. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that. I didn't mean to cut you
you're
off.
good, man.
So a couple other guys that we're going to talk about. I guess it's kind of like a handcuff week. If you're really looking want to waste your waiver wire, Madison is going to be on our waiver wire column. He's just as good as I think Cook if he goes down.
Going back to what we were talking about earlier about the talent drop off, Madison is looking like it. Here's the thing. Let's just say, God forbid, Dalvin Cook goes down. Madison is automatically a top 6 running back fantasy wise. He doesn't look like it's a step off at all from Dalvin Cook. Exact same running styles, very versatile, explosive, powerful, strong, great contact balance. So whenever I'm looking at waiver wires or handcuffs, the term that's always used is the question I ask myself is this. Let's say everything goes right for Madison and Dalvin Cook is injured. How great of a running back could this guy be? Could he be a league winner? 100% yes. So those are the types of guys you go get. I felt the same way about Wayne Gallman just because the situation, New York loves to have a 3-down back in there and they throw it to the backfield a lot. So that's huge. Whereas you look at, similar players like, let's say, James Conner, who is an all-purpose 3-down back. If he gets injured, it's split carries. They're going to use, Samuels. They're going to use Snell. They're going to use lots of guys. But that's not the case in Minnesota. If Dalvin Cook goes down, Madison's the guy. So I love that pickup. He should be rostered in all leagues anyway before this. But for some reason, I guess people don't listen to us as much as they should, Armando.
I hear you. Another guy that's going to fall under that category of must start if they go down is Chase Edmonds. I think Chase Edmonds is just as talented as David Johnson, and right now David Johnson has a tight back, and he's questionable for this week, so he's going to be on a waiver wire column as well.
Yeah. David Johnson coming off his best week in a long time, actually. He got a lot of carries, 17 carries, 91 yards. He got a lot of targets. He had 3 catches for 65 yards, put up a couple big catches. Anybody that's in the backfield or out there, they're going to get catches. I do think Chase Edmonds is good. He's coming off his best week as well, but a lot of that's just because of the Bengals. The Bengals are just that bad. So you can start anybody playing against the Bengals.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And by the way, these waiver wires are brought to you by Clayton Kadu. Say it 3 times fast. Another guy that's going to end up on our waiver wire column is Everett for the St. Louis Rams, the tight end. He had
you said St. Louis Rams. You got to take a shot.
God damn it. Okay, hold on a second. He's worth a waiver wire ad if you're desperate. He had an amazing week. 4 or 5, whatever week.
Yeah, 7 catches, 136 yards. I'd say that's pretty solid. And what's crazy is he did this with Tyler Higbee back. A lot of people dropped Everett because they thought once Tyler Higbee came back, he would lose some of this. But no, they amped it up even more. So curious to see what's going to be moving forward, the snap count there. But yeah, Everett must add. Anybody in these types of offenses, the Rams, Kansas City, you got to own those guys just because the offenses are so great.
Yep, I do not disagree with you. So going into news/waiver wire column, Sterling Shepard is in the concussion protocol. They have a game on Thursday. So if Tate is available and Slayton is available, they might be worth a waiver wire add.
Yeah, a lot of people kept Tate, through the suspension, the 4-game suspension, thinking he was going to pan out, and he left a huge dookie on the field last week. But now with Sterling Shepard out, that means he is going to be the go-to wide receiver. I think Evan Ingram definitely gets more targets. But as far as just the wide receiver position in and of itself, it's got to be Golden Tate. The talent is there. He does run shorter routes. Should be good. So don't get pissed off and drop him yet. He is still a viable play here in Week 6.
I agree. So moving forward to the news section, Hunter Henry has not been rolled out for Week 6. The Chargers are struggling. If he starts, he's worth starting on your team.
Yeah. Big time. He's kind of top 7 tight end with upside just because Phillip Rivers has, made the tight end more fantasy relevant than any quarterback in the history of football with Antonio Gates. Like, we've seen him do this over and over and over again. So if he's out there, he is a must start. And you know what else is a must start, Armando? That's going to be manscaped.com. Manscaped.com, they are there for all of your male grooming, below the belt trimming needs that you got. Just head over to manscaped.com, use promo code ESF. You'll receive 20% off whatever you order, plus free shipping. And if you order one of their combo kits, you get a free travel bag, which is legit. And trust me, you do not want to go with the off-brand stuff or whatever you get at the grocery store or whatever, because this year nether regions, treat it with care, make it look good, and you definitely don't want to use the same razor that you use on your face. That's just ridiculous. So head over to manscaped.com and make sure you tell them ESF sent you.
Good job, John. I have like an Amazon forest down there, so I really should get into that Manscaped stuff.
Dear Lord Armando, if there is like one, I don't think it's an adjective, but yes, Amazon forest describes you 100%.
Thank you.
Only you would take that as a compliment.
Hey, it's a beautiful place, man. Let me tell you.
I don't know if you're talking about the geographic location or your balls.
I think they're both beautiful, and a lot of people would agree.
Oh,
if you know what I mean.
There you go. 4 out of 5 right. Dentists recommend.
Yep, that's right. Ben Watson has been released by the New England Patriots. There goes our waiver wire ad last week.
Yeah, I really thought that this could have been something, but it seems like he's going to retire. He dealt with the suspension. Don't really know what's going on. There's not a lot of news out, but I was wrong on this one. I'll own up to it. I held on to him, and Scott Fishbowl, I thought it'd pay off, and I was completely wrong. But that's okay. He was free, and you were hoping for upside. Now you just move on. Look to the next thing.
Yep. Antonio Callaway has been activated for the Cleveland Browns. I don't think it means a whole lot.
Well, with Higgins out, I don't know when people are going to be listening to this, but this is the Monday Night Football game. But with Higgins out, Antonio Callaway will be the number 3 in that offense moving forward until Higgins comes back.
Yep, 100% agree. Nice news to hear. Marquise Brown does not have a serious ankle injury, so he might be available going forward.
Man, he's got 2 bad ankles now. It's the opposite foot of the Liz Frank injury that he had against Texas in the Big 12 tournament last year that took forever to come back. I don't think he was at 100% anyway, but now this guy could be amazing. So you definitely want to hold on to him if you got him, because you're talking about somebody that could be a top 10 wide receiver down the stretch if he can just get healthy. So...
And they play the Dolphins and Cardinals back-to-back weeks for the rest of the season. It's not happening, guys. He's not. I'm disagreeing with John on that one. I fucking hate everything about the Ravens. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't think that they're a good football team, But as far as from the explosiveness, from you got to look at what the running game can do from a fantasy perspective, and you got to throw it to somebody.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. So Jordan Howard looks like the running back to own in the Philadelphia Eagles. Even Doug Peterson says that he's training toward getting more carries going forward.
Yeah, and it's crazy to say more carries just because he got so many. He got 13 compared to Miles Sanders' 9, but he's getting all the goal line work predominantly, and he's got to be a guy. You love the Eagles' offense and the way that it's trending. Yes, they don't get to play the Jets all the time, but this offense is very, very friendly to the running back position. And with Darren Sproles likely to miss some time, that's just going to uptick even more Jordan Howard. I didn't want to start anybody in this backfield just because there were so many guys, but now there seems to be just 2. And so now I have confidence a lot more in Jordan Howard than Miles Sanders, but I don't mind Miles Sanders either. He returns a lot of value whenever you look at the passing game. He got 5 targets, 4 catches, 49 yards. I think both are fantasy viable now.
Yeah, I think right now is a great time to buy low on Miles Sanders, especially with this news coming out. People are going to be like, oh, Miles Sanders is useless. He might even be cut in some leagues. I would not be shocked. Just off that news alone, people are kind of crazy. So definitely a buy low for me if he's out there in some leagues. Delvin Hodges looks like the starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers next week against the Chargers. I might get him in SFB because you need quarterbacks, but what else?
Yeah, we're talking about in quarterback premium leagues, maybe if you have a bye week out, whatever. But outside of just like the deepest desperate play, you don't need to mess with them. And for as bad as that Mason Rudolph injury looked, it seems like he's going to be okay. Now, he did go to the hospital. He's in concussion protocol. He's not going to play this week. I don't think that he does. But he'll be back in 2 weeks. Not too concerned long term. Mason Rudolph is the guy to own.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. The Washington Redskins have fired their coach. How does this? They have not announced a quarterback for next week. I hope they decide not to start Haskins because he does not look ready. It should be
Bill Callahan, good Lord, who's been around for a long time, super famous for basically blowing the Super Bowl with the Ravens and changing the game plan 2 days before the Super Bowl. But that's okay. He's an awful person. The Redskins is just an awful place. You got rid of the only guy that can work with quarterbacks, Jay Gruden. He might not be a good head coach, but he's very good with quarterbacks. His track record's amazing. The GM is the person to blame. You have an all-pro left tackle just sitting there just because they're a bunch of assholes. This is a dumpster fire, man. And here's the crazy thing. The Redskins have the Dolphins on the schedule coming up. And so one of those 2 teams is going to win eventually. And this might be
it's
the
going to end
battle
in a
for
draw,
the first
0-0.
They both tie. They both miss out on the first overall pick because they do it. That sounds like a thing they would do. So, it seems like they want to start Case Keenum, which
he's a good quarterback. He was fine. It wasn't his fault they were losing. I don't.
He had a pretty rough game, I think, but it's what it is. Yeah. It's just a bad situation. And so the person that should have been fired is Allen, the GM. But, of course, he's anyway, I hate that organization. They deserve everything they're getting.
Wow. Why? Because of their name? Or
name, the ownership, the way that they take advantage of players, forcing people to come back earlier whenever they're injured. It's a terrible organization with a terrible GM that do not give their players a chance to be successful. I had zero passion for those guys.
Yeah, okay, I hear you. I like that, John. It's powerful stuff. So last thing we'll talk about before we kind of do some rapid fire or something, Patrick Mahomes tweaked his ankle. He seems to be fine. He played through it, but he didn't look the same. Not at all.
No, and so the reports were out that, he tweaked his ankle week 1, and he just kind of played through it, and everything seemed okay. But then what happens is, man, it looked rough. Because you could tell it was bothering him the whole time. He has his worst game ever. And here's my problem. I was all in on everybody for the Chiefs because the Defensive Player of the Year candidate was out there, middle linebacker who won Rookie of the Year last year, both of their safeties, and yet they couldn't muster up any offense down the field. Now, I understand that Sammy Watkins and Tyreek Hill are still out, but man, they have a lot of guys, and they just didn't really test it deep over the middle as much as I would have thought. So, yeah, that's a rough one. That is a rough one.
No, all right. Sounds good. Do we have some Nitrogen Sports coming up?
Yeah, we do. And here's the thing. Nitrogen Sports is the #1 Bitcoin betting site, fully reliable. Absolutely love this website. But what you need to do is head over to eatsleepfantasy.com. It's a website, and then click on the Nitrogen Sports banner on the front page. First thing you'll see it up there. Click on that. That's going to send you over to Nitrogen Sports. Here's what I want to talk about this week. And, I just mentioned it. The Washington Redskins are traveling to the Miami Dolphins for an early game. And here's what I am going to bet. I'm going to bet the under. The under is set at 41 points. I don't think that these guys can do it. It's two of the worst offenses ever. I could totally see a 17-13 game with points to spare. So my bet of the week, and the thing that I've already put money on, is the Washington Redskins traveling to Miami. And this is maybe the craziest thing. The Dolphins are favored. They are 3.5-point favorites over Washington, but I don't want to put money on either team. I want to bet against them both, and the only way I can do that is betting the under.
That's good. Yeah, I'm picking the Dolphins on this one, man. They're coming off the bye week against a poor defense. They were starting to look better as we're heading into the bye week. I'm a Dolphins fan. We got Kenyon Drake. Don't forget about that guy. And Preston Williams, who's on our waiver wire column
Yeah,
this
Preston
week.
Williams, especially in Dynasty, should be owned just because there is a strong likelihood he will be the #1 wide receiver moving forward. Obviously, they have a lot of draft picks, and we'll address that in the future. But anytime you can get the #1 draft pick on any, or #1 wide receiver threat on any team, it's definitely worth rostering for sure.
I don't disagree with you. So I got a couple questions for you before we kind of end this episode, because there isn't a lot of news going on. Are you panicking on Mike Evans or DeAndre Hopkins?
DeAndre Hopkins, no. Mike Evans, I'm still going to say no. I think both are buy low candidates on great offenses. You look at Mike Evans, he was shadowed by Marshawn Lattimore, and still 0 catches that's ridiculous. But Mike Evans has always been this guy. This is who he is. He disappears for times. He's done it all 5 years that he's been in the league, but the upside is so immense on that offense. So, you kind of – I'm sending out trade offers for him in every league. The problem that I have is that in 2 leagues I'm in, he's owned by a huge Tampa Bay Bucks fan, which I didn't know they existed. So, I can't get him away in those 2 leagues. But, yeah, I'm sending trade offers out. I did get DeAndre Hopkins in 1 league last week, but I'm going to keep trying to fight for him. I want both these guys on my team.
I have Mike Evans, and I'm putting him on the block in our Dynasty League. Do you have a quick offer for me? I need a running back.
I have lots of running backs. So
you have way too
I know,
many.
right? It's like a problem that I have. I tell you what, I'll trade you Wayne Gallman for him.
Go suck a bag of dicks.
Yeah, I do. I'll trade you Sony Michel for him straight up.
I would not like that trade at all. I own too much shares of Sony Michel. I was happy this week, but I've been pretty sad most of the season, let me tell you.
See, I already have so many great wide receivers. I'm going to brag for a second here. I've got Julio Jones, Odell Beckham. Actually, I don't have that many great ones. I just got 2.
Nope, you've traded them
I did.
away.
No, I'm going to send you a trade. We're going to make this happen.
Just so everyone knows my wide receiver situation, because I have way too many good ones. I have Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill. He's not great as a person, but he's great in fantasy football. DJ Chark, DJ Moore, McLaren, and that's about it.
What if I trade you?
Tyler Lockett.
What about this one? Wayne Gallman, Carlos Hyde, and Stefon Diggs.
No. Stefon Diggs is hot garbage because he doesn't even want to be there anymore. Gallman has lost all his value.
What if I throw in Ben
Carlos
Watson?
Oh, man. You know what? I love this dumpster fire throwing over here. Let me
Okay. Last one. No. I'm just going to nix that one. That's okay. We'll figure this out, and if we do get a trade done, we will send it out over the air, or we'll text it out on Twitter. Text it out on Twitter? Is that
I appreciate that. Yeah, text it out on Twitter. That's how this works. I think it's going to do it for our show, John.
Yeah, I'll say this.
Okay,
this
right?
is one of those weird weeks. where there's not a lot available on there, but pay attention to wherever you get your news source from and see if any late injuries come up. But until then, there's not a lot of league winners out there. What you need to be spending your time on is going through your league and paying attention to the huge duds. The top tier guys, and buy low. We've already mentioned a couple. DeAndre Hopkins, go get Mike Evans, those types of guys, and see what you can get. Also, the quarterback position, see if you can go get somebody like Lamar Jackson right now. I know, for example, Armando's super low on him, but try to go get those high-level guys that can compete that are coming off a bad performance. That's what I'm going to be spending my time doing.
I will say this. I am starting Andy Dalton in a lot of leagues going forward for the next couple of weeks. He's fine this week. He had a bad week last week, but he was top 10 this week. He has a good matchup again next week.
Those were trash. Man, it's old Blake Bortles thing. He had nothing until 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. He hit 2 touchdowns late. Yeah. And, man, it was looking like, I tweeted out, this might be Andy Dalton's last game ever as a starter because he was just that offense is so bad. I wouldn't be surprised.
It's not his fault, though, is it?
He's bad. He's not helping things. But, yeah, it's a horrible offensive line. I do think Finley will get a chance at some point this year, especially if they're out of contention.
Yeah.
But as long as he's the starter, you're exactly correct because they are throwing the ball a ton, and they have to play catch-up. So as far as, fantasy purposes, yes, I agree with you 100%, but just understand that's a week-by-week thing, and you might only be able to use them for 2 or 3 weeks, but still a very fantasy viable option.
I agree with you. 2 more questions for you. Do you think Amari Cooper is a sell high?
Yes, I do. I'm not the biggest believer in that offense, especially without Tyron Smith. That guy is the most talented player on their team. Tyron Smith, their left tackle. And whenever we saw this last year, whenever he is out or when one of their stud offensive linemen's out, it's not the same thing. So, yeah, if you can sell him, no problem there.
Yeah. Just something we didn't mention either. Sammy Watkins did leave the game with an injury. That's why Byron Pringle had a great game. I think Sammy Watkins is questionable going forward. I don't think Pringle's going to be on our waiver wire column this week, but just wanted to throw that out there.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think so either. But yeah, you can add him. He looks great, but how often is Sammy Watkins and Tyreek going to be out? I guess a lot.
Maybe, right? All right. Well, stay tuned for more episodes from Eat Sleep Fantasy.
Yeah, yo.
Yeah. Eat Sleep Fantasy, you rockin' with the best. NFL Fantasy Football Podcast. We talking mock drafts, running backs, better follow the conversation with John, Dale, Christian, and Armando. Screaming Eat Nation, we doing what we like. Tune in every week, guarantee we get it hype. Fantasy football enthusiasts, I know you plan to be joining us on Eat Sleep Fantasy. Yeah, Eat Sleep Fantasy. Eat Sleep Fantasy.